Grand Prix Portland here from sunny Oregon. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Zach Hill, and we are off to the races. John Stern on the left-hand side of your screen is going to lead off with Blackcleave Cliffs into a Deathrite Shaman. PVDDR, as he's sometimes known, or just PV on the right-hand side of your screen, starts off with a Steam Vents. So, Zach, why don't you tell us a little bit about the matchup here?
Yeah, so we're seeing John Stern playing the Jund deck with white, as popularized by Raptor Josh Utter-Layton several months back. Deck lost Bloodbraid Elf to the bannings, but still tons of potent cards. It's a mid-range deck. It's just going to try to trade with its opponent, get ahead on resources. It has 6 copies of Planeswalkers, 4 Liliana the Veil, 2 Ajani Vengeance, that allow it to gain incremental advantage turn after turn. Paulo is playing Scapeshift, a deck that basically tries to get 7 lands in play. Cast the card Scapeshift, which allows it to sacrifice any number of lands for that many more lands. It gets 2 copies of Valakut the Molten Pinnacle and 5 Mountains, which triggers it a lot and basically kills the opponent on the spot. So it's basically a combo deck with some light control elements. It's going to just try to stall out the game and stay alive. PV playing a pretty innovative list, actually. 4 copies of Peer Through Depths, so a little bit more combo-oriented than some of the other decks.
Mountains, right?
6 mountains.
Yeah, so 1 Valakut and 6 mountains for 18, which is usually enough.
Usually
going to
be enough.
If you get an extra mountain, you might need to go 1 more land deeper to kill them if they're actually at the full 20.
Right, and the deck has like 2 copies of Lightning Bolt, so it can deal those last couple of damage. Sakura Tribe Elder can attack for a couple points.
That's right.
But mainly in a format defined by the Ravnica lands, the Ravnica dual lands, people tend to deal themselves some damage.
Yep, we won't call them shock lands for nothing. All right, now PV had an interesting choice. He can Farseek on his second turn, which is what he decided to do. He's also got a Pyroclasm in his hand here and a Peer Through Depths. So it looks like, ooh, Liliana of the Veil. That's a reasonable card, I think, versus Paulo, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. The Scapeshift deck needs a critical density of both lands and spells.
Yeah.
A downside of Liliana is against some decks, okay, you're just hitting lands, they don't care, they have excess lands. Scapeshift deck very rarely has excess lands.
It needs all of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It needs every one of its cards. So Liliana particularly effective in this matchup, specifically because PV doesn't really have any good way to threaten that Planeswalker.
No, he doesn't. Now, he can deal with the Deathrite Shaman whenever he wants thanks to that Pyroclasm, so that's not going to be an issue going forward. But looking at his hand right now, Liliana looks really bad for him. So he is going to go ahead and Pyroclasm to kick off this turn. That's going to take care of Deathrite Shaman. He's going to play land and pass. So he's going to peer through depth, or peer into depths?
I think peer through depths.
Yeah, I think it's peer through depths.
Yeah. Wherever the depths are, I need to see all the way through them. And he's probably likely to cast that at the end of the turn. Now, another option is for him to just run the Snapcaster Mage out right now to try and threaten that Liliana.
Sure.
Because otherwise, it's going to just eviscerate Paulo's hand. Now, of course, John having to discard cards too to the Liliana, but when it's ticking up towards its ultimate, it's certainly hard to say that effect is purely symmetrical.
Now, interesting. So, assuming that he pluses Liliana here, and then Paulo does run out, his Snapcaster Mage attacks Liliana back down to 3. If you're John, do you still just keep plussing it? Do you just say, like, look, I'm just going to keep doing this, or do you have to take your foot off the gas on that and kill the Snapcaster?
I think you keep doing it. I think you just want to see them empty their hand.
Yeah, it's really nice when you get this deck to have an empty hand. All right, so here comes the Peer Through Depths here.
Right. No empty Snapcaster Mage.
There's a search for tomorrow, a land, and another search for tomorrow. There's also a Scapeshift, though. All right, looks like he's going to reveal Scapeshift. The rest are going to go on the bottom of his library in any order. So he has 1 critical combo piece, but he's only got 4 lands currently.
He only has 4 lands. Now, an interesting thing about that Scapeshift, it doesn't have to be used to combo out. Like, you can just sack your lands, get a couple Raging Ravines. I mean, John's board is not terribly developed right now.
No, and we know that his hand has taken a beating of the hand of Liliana as well.
Exactly.
All right, so let's see. Is this a Tarmogoyf for a Bob? It is. Dark Confidant for John Stern, and he has a follow-up play of a Lightning Bolt. He's just going to empty his hand out because he knows that that Liliana is going to be able to do what it needs to do here. So Dark Confidant's going to act to refill John Stern's hand, and Paulo, he's facing a lot of pressure right now.
Right. Now, and you maybe ask yourself, okay, why did he main phase his Lightning Bolt? But the Scapeshift deck contains 4 copies of Remand, and because he knows he's drawing 2 cards next turn and wants to activate Liliana, he wants to empty his hand as much as he can so that Liliana's only affecting Paulo.
Right.
So the last thing he wants is for that bolt to get hit by a Remand and him have to discard an actual card next turn.
That's right. Now we see that Paulo just passes a turn back, no land drop for him. A lightning bolt is revealed from Dark Confidant, and you know a typical play here would be like land bolt you attack, or it could be something like play a creature bolt you. I mean, he can really keep his hand fairly empty, and that way he can plus Liliana again.
Now, one thing you have to be very careful about if you're John right now is Cryptic Command, which Paulo is representing.
Yes.
If he casts Cryptic Command in response to Liliana the Veil's +1, he can actually make John discard a card that he does not want to discard if John gets too excited about emptying his hand.
For example, if he empties his hand, goes for the +1, he can bounce Liliana and make him discard
Exactly.
that. Yeah, so that's something that he's got to be really concerned about. Also, John has to be wary of Snapcaster Mage here. So he's going to attack first with Dark Confidant because he says, look, if you want a Snapcaster, A, I have a bolt in my hand, and B, that means you can't Cryptic me. So
precisely, yeah, and if he casts Snapcaster, even with the intention of flashing back something, he can still bolt the Snapcaster and eliminate whatever Snapcaster is targeting the graveyard. He's only going to be able to do a couple of things at once.
All right, here's a Peer Through Depths off the Snapcaster Mage. Is he looking for a lightning bolt? What is he searching for here? He did find a bolt.
I would have to guess, yeah. I mean, like, you just do not beat Jund decks when they are able to have Dark Confidant sitting on the board, gaining them card advantage.
Yeah, this is disgusting from Paulo's side. I mean, he's staring down Dark Confidant and Liliana, and he has no pressure and really nothing going currently in the way of winning the game. He's got the Scape Shift, but he's pretty far away from the critical massive lands that he needs.
Now, that Snapcaster, all of that having been said, was very good right now. It's going to get him back a head-on cards yet again. The Bolt's going to take out the Confidant, and Snapcaster at least able to threaten Liliana the Veil, which currently is at 6 counters for her ultimate.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the Lightning Bolt gets rid of the Snapcaster, but again, it's forcing at the very least John to commit some resources to the board.
That's right, and you know, it's not like John always has a Lightning Bolt there either. So.
Right, and now, like, of course, you can say, okay, it's going to ultimate Liliana if he wants to, but that's only going to blow up 2 lands.
Yeah.
That's very powerful, obviously, but it's not as though John has an immense clock on the board right now.
Now, if the Dark Confidant were to live, then that would probably be a pretty reasonable option, but John knows that PV just drew a Lightning Bolt, so he knows that he's not going to be able to ride that Dark Confidant to victory. So we might see him just keep plussing Liliana.
Right.
Here.
Now, an interesting choice for Paulo. He just drew Is It Charm, which can also take out the Dark Confidant, and Is It Charm cannot hit Liliana like Lightning Bolt can. So I think we might see an Is It Charm taking out the Confidant, which is interesting. Is now he's revealed more information to John.
He has now. So and John still does know. He is aware that he's got that that PV has that Lightning Bolt in hand. So if John wants, I mean, it does depend on his draw. He can ultimate Liliana here. He can make PV sacrifice 2 of his lands, which is a significant effect. But, you know, you were mentioning earlier, Zach, that John really wants to see PV with an empty hand.
Right.
Right, and he doesn't quite have that yet.
And right now, very good position for John. You know, John can ultimate Liliana and keep it alive, drawing out the Lightning Bolt. You have to expect him probably to tick Liliana up 1 right here, which will effectively put her at 5 loyalty after Bolt hits. That still gives PV a turn before Liliana's ultimate drops, and 2 turns if John wants to keep Liliana on the table. That said, blowing up 2 or 3 lands against Scapeshift, a deck that really wants a critical density of lands, I mean, you obviously have to say John's in a pretty commanding position right now.
Yeah, and you know, and it is interesting too. I don't know if it's going to come up in this match, but we've seen it before on camera, and I've played this deck on Magic Online a fair, but the deck that PV's playing, and you know, it's actually fairly thin. you have just enough mountains and just enough stuff to actually kill your opponent.
When you'll notice that in the way that PV fetches out lands or the lands he tries to get on the table, you really want to leave as many mountains as you can in your deck.
And we're talking about any card that's a mountain, like Steam Vents is a mountain. You know.
Right,
all right, so PV is going to float all of the mana as we do see John Stern ultimate Liliana here. This can never be good when you're sitting in PVC. Your opponent just ultimated a Planeswalker. He separates him into the piles, and PV chooses to sacrifice a pile of 2. He's going to keep the pile with more cards, although we notice that John has strategically said, I will cut you off of green here.
Right, exactly. And so we do see Liliana go away. Oh, wow, Tarmogoyf, a huge.
It's got to be 6-7, 5-6, something along those lines. There's a Planeswalker in the yard, too, here.
Right. And relevantly, without green mana, there's no secure Tribe Elders that PV can put in the way. He's going to be hard to ramp. He's not going to be able to cast Scape Shift. And a very, very powerful top deck for John that turn. So you have to imagine PV drew a Snapcaster Mage right now.
Yep, he did indeed. And he is going to flash in his Snapcaster Mage to kill Deathrite Shaman.
That's basically all you can do with a Snapcaster Mage at this point, but still Tarmogoyf's causing huge problems for you. See John confirming that that was a legal play.
He's just making sure that what he Snapcaster Mage. That was all on end step, though, so PV can attack for 2 with his Snapcaster and just plays the land and says go.
Yep, still no green mana for PV. And
No.
again, the rate of damage right here, I think Tarmogoyf's attacking for something like 5, Snapcaster Mage attacking for 2, PV at 4 life, and
Yeah.
John at 14. So
PV's forced to chump block here with the Snapcaster Mage.
White floating repeals on
oh, okay.
And there is a Lotus Cobra, but PV draws his card for the turn, and it's not enough, so we're going to get a game 2 here.
I mean, that game was just all about Liliana.
It really was. Once he stuck Liliana, it was really tough for Apollo to be able to interact with that card, and therefore his hand just got destroyed.
And really looking at PV's deck, I mean, he's got 4 copies of Remand, 2 Cryptic Commands, 2 Izzet Charms, but really not very many ways to threaten a Liliana of the Veil. After sideboard, he can bring in Obstinate Baloth, which is a very powerful weapon against the card, however. He also has a single Plains in his sideboard.
What is that floating around for?
He's got 3 Ley Lines of Sanctity, so it's possible that with a Plains and... Yeah, I don't know, man. I guess... oh, yeah, with Plains and Temple Garden, he can theoretically hardcast Leyline of Sanctity if he ever needs to.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Leyline of Sanctity probably very good in this matchup. Extremely effective against the Jund deck's Thought Seizes and Inquisitions of Kozilek.
And those are for sure to be coming in full force in the next game. I mean, are there any of those in the sideboard for John Stern? We know he has some in the main. Yeah, he's got an extra Thought Seize as well on the board.
Yeah,
so
you have to expect that coming in. Maybe a... I don't know.
He's got
Slaughter Game's probably very, very effective.
It's really, really good, yeah.
Sowing
Let's take
Salt
a look at
not
our
too
other
bad.
match here. Jerry Thompson on the left versus Carlos Pal. Now, I mentioned earlier, Carlos is kind of figuring out the deck he's running himself because his friend registered it for him. Because he had some flight issues. He's an international player. He comes in from Costa Rica, and getting here can be a problem sometimes for him. He had some issues with his flight, so...
So now you see Jerry passing the turn with a lot of gas in his hand. You have to wonder what's going on.
So he has Tron online.
Or no, he wasn't passing. I thought that's what he was doing, but he was not.
I see.
What is that land that we see right there?
That's
Is
a
that
Ghost
Quarter?
Quarter, yeah.
GQ. Oh, okay. And Mind Slavering, Jerry's like, pass the turn
so
to
what
me.
what you're seeing here is Jerry Thompson taking Carlos's turn for him. So you see that Carlos has revealed his hand, and right now Jerry gets to make all the decisions that Carlos would normally get to make thanks to Mindslaver. It's kind of a weird thing that doesn't happen very often in Magic, and in fact a lot of people just concede once it happens, but Carlos isn't, and we're going to get to see right now how Jerry can best wreck Carlos's side
now,
of the table.
the Mindslaver, not all that powerful right now with Carlos having so many lands in his hand. Jerry does, however, get to crack a fetch land and look through Carlos's entire deck.
And he can also fail to find, is that right?
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to fail to find, and so dealing a damage to Carlos, getting the Inquisition out of his hand, saving himself an attack from the Lingering Souls tokens in the Dark Confidant. Also has the option to flashback Lingering Souls if he wants to, which might allow Jerry to set up his Oblivion Stone more powerfully.
Okay.
So, I mean, definitely not a bad Mindslaver, but given that sometimes when you activate Mindslaver, you just kill your opponent.
Yes.
Not the best one we've ever seen either.
Yep. It's kind of interesting here, too, because part of the reason why it's not a great Mindslaver in this spot is because Carlos's hand isn't very good.
Yeah, exactly.
Just doesn't have a whole lot going on.
I mean, and Jerry still has several spells in his hand, so it's not as though the Mindslaver is all he's got. You see the Academy Ruins on the table, so Jerry, if he gets a few more mana, equipping himself to set up the hard lock.
Yeah. the Mindslaver Hardlock. So basically what he can do is sacrifice the Mindslaver to take the next turn, and he can use Academy Runes to put it back on top of his library, redraw it, and thanks to Tron pieces have enough mana not only cast but activate it again in the same turn, and then Carlos never gets another turn for the rest of the game.
Right, and because Jerry's just drawing the same Mindslaver, he can actually just deck Carlos, assuming nothing else happens.
Yeah, but you know, one of the interesting things though about Mindslaver that is easily overlookable, it's also like a time warp, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
he
exactly.
just doesn't get a turn. So even though a turn happened, you know, Jerry is under no threat of dying. So even if he's at 1 life, you know, he gets another draw step and he gets to do more stuff. So let's see what he's got. We can see that he has the full Tron set up. When we say Tron, we're talking about those Urza's lands there. When you get all 3 of them, they make 7 mana, 7 colorless mana combined, 3, 2, and 2. It's pretty insane. There's a Crucible of Worlds for Jerry. Pretty tame. All right, we're going to jump back over to our main match, it looks like, as we have PV on the right-hand side. I know it says Carlos Pal, but we'll get that switched back over to the correct names, and there it is.
So we do see that ley line on turn 0 from Paulo, and that's going to really impede John's ability to interact with Paulo's Scapeshift deck.
That's a great opener for him. Now remember, it won't work for Liliana, but we know that most likely John has 6 discard spells in his deck post board. Those are all completely blank now for the most part. The best you can do is like do it to yourself to make your Tarmogoyf bigger or something. Like they're very marginalized, and he's got a few other things that he might care about. Lightning bolts, you know,
a Johnny Vengeance.
A Johnny Vengeance
can Helix, or I don't think a Johnny Vengeance ultimate works in this.
No,
case.
it does not. Yeah.
Which against again a deck that wants to play a lot of lands, a very relevant ability.
Yeah, destroy all lands target player controls is the text on that. So you can't target him.
So, I mean, not that John's completely out of gas, however. I mean, his deck does a lot more than makes his opponent discard spells. The other thing is that, I mean, that means that Paulo has some redundant ley lines in his deck, has several dead draws if he ends up drawing them. So, although obviously ley line very, very, very good in this matchup, does not come without a cost.
Deathrite Shaman, unaffected by ley line of safety.
Yes.
It's each opponent loses 2 life. Yeah, so it doesn't target.
Sort of a counterintuitive wording on that card, but that's certainly how it works.
Yeah. Who made that card?
I don't know anything about making cards. So we see John just trying to contemplate his play right now. He has access probably to 4 mana, a grip full of cards. PV doesn't really have anything on the board, but that's kind of what his deck does. And all PV wants to do is just sit and play some lands. We see John attacking with Deathrite Shaman, strongly suggesting that he has probably more threats to follow up with, because normally the best part about Deathrite Shaman is not its ability to attack for 1.
Right. Okay, there it is, Liliana of the Veil. One of the best options for John here, as again, it doesn't target, but he is going to get a nasty surprise here. Oh, I guess he doesn't have it in his hand. I thought he had an Obstinate Baloth, but he doesn't.
That is... You've got to feel like a real master if you just get your opponent with Obstinate Baloth.
Oh, yeah.
Is that mainstream technology?
That's
like most decks play
outplayed.
it?
It's a common sideboard card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that being said, like, I mean, there's some merit to just saying to your opponent, like, okay, if you have your sideboard card, you have it, because without Obstinate Baloth, this Liliana is going to tear apart Paulo's hand.
That's right. Now, would you have used Liliana the Veil's ability first before attacking with your Deathrite Shaman?
I think so.
I mean, wouldn't you like the opportunity to chump block with it if maybe you have a Terminate in your hand or some way to actually kill the Baloth?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. Like I guess that's also an argument for attacking first, though, so that if you use it and they do have the Baloth, you can still get an additional point of damage.
That's true. But I mean, you're going to lose your Liliana in that case.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, So
it just depends on how
you're not going to be able to edict him, right?
No.
So I mean, I think your Deathrite Shaman and being up a card is probably more valuable than.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it depends on what you have in your hand
sure.
as well, right?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I mean, if you have a Terminate,
right,
you would take that different line.
No, that's for sure true.
All right.
I also just am biased in favor of Deathrite Shaman. I want that card on my board at all times. It's basically a 1-mana planeswalker. Like, it's got 3 abilities. It's got a 4th ability, which is being a 1/2 creature. The card is utterly devastating. We see Liliana stripping more lands away, and again a Raging Ravine from John. But once again, PV just not doing a whole lot.
No, but he will have his 6th land drop if he wants it, and he's got Escape Shift in hand. He's under a lot of pressure right now from Liliana of the Veil, and really has nothing. He's got Escape Shift land in hand, so he has no way to interact currently.
And 6 is exactly the number he doesn't want for his Escape Shift. Now, like you were talking about, it takes 8 lands to really totally kill your opponent. But with 7 at the very least, he could Escape Shift, get 1 Valakut, get 5 other mountains, and at least deal with the Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah,
but
and he can also kill Liliana.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, if he had enough to go crazy, he could.
Yeah.
But he can get 1 Valakut rather than 2 Valakuts and 6 mountains. Which would and that is that is 7. Yeah, no, that would go.
Yeah, so
that
he
would be
could
a lot
kill
of lightning
both.
bolts.
He could kill. Yeah, he could kill.
Yeah,
all
no,
of
you're
that
absolutely
stuff.
right. Yeah, he would resolve a lot of his problems.
It would indeed. So he's drawn an Is It Charm, I believe.
So where do you think you send that as a charm?
I mean, it looks like 2 Deathrite Shamans. The second one isn't amazing, right? He's gonna run out of targets before it really matters. So killing 1 Deathrite Shaman, I don't think really gets you anywhere. He might even want to use the that's where you send it. You just get rid of it.
So you just try to top deck a land here and cast Escape Shift.
Yep,
right.
That's it. That is exactly what he's going to try to do.
Now,
if he doesn't, then Liliana gets to ultimate.
Now, something a little awkward for Paulo right here is he has 4 mountains in play. Now,
he has 4 of his mountains. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier, where he's got to be careful. I think he's still okay at this point.
I don't know that he is. He only has 5 more mountains left in his deck.
Oh, no.
Which is like the exact wrong number of mountains that you want to have.
It is. Oh, wow. Thundermaw Hellkite, too, is also pressing the issue, though. All right, and he drew another mountain.
Wow. I mean, you've got to be looking.
Now, he can leave them on the battlefield and get fewer Valakut triggers, but he needs quite a few of them in this spot, thanks to that Thundermaw Hellkite. He needs to send at least 2 to that. He really does need to take care of the Deathrite Shamans, and he probably wants to take Liliana down to at least eat 1 Lightning Bolt so he doesn't get ultimated.
Do you try to run the just like, I have 7 lands,
Yeah, just next game, bro. Look, I mean, this is John Stern. He plays a lot of Magic. There's 0 chance he's falling for that one.
I really do like the boldness of the 1 Thundermaw Hellkite. Just get him,
And I know you're a huge fan of that card.
Oh, yeah, my favorite Magic card.
Is it?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. I didn't know you were that
I
big
like dragons. I made it. It's in my set. It looks cool.
I might have to have you sign one of those for me. Whoa, easy. He thought about tapping his mana, but I don't think he really needs to here.
So we're going to see, what are we going to see? Like 3 mountains and a Valakut?
He's going to sack 4 cards, yep, so that would be 3 and a Valakut.
So I mean, Escape Shift's still very powerful right now, but not going to end the game.
He looks like he's going for the 5th here. But he doesn't have an...
He has 4 mountains left in his
deck. Does he? He
so
drew 1.
Yeah, right. So that's 5. He has 3 more dual lands and a basic mountain left.
Okay.
So he can get a Valakut, 4 mountains. That gives him 12 damage to work with, I think. All right, so that's not what we're seeing.
Looks like PV's having a similar thought process to the one that you were just having, Zach. He's really tanking it out here.
I mean, he has a lot of options. Like, you have to think you've got to kill the Hellkite. You want to deal at least 3 damage to Liliana so you don't lose all your lands.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So he's gonna get 4 lands.
So there's the Valakut. Now, the way this works is they all enter the battlefield simultaneously, and they all see each other, as it were. So right now, when these enter, they're going to say, look, I've got 6. So 1, 2. He's targeting his creatures. And he's going to take out, so 2 of them are going to go to Thundermaw Hellkite, and 1 is going to go to 1 of the Deathrite. So he did actually let him keep.
Yeah. I guess he's saying, like, all right, I'm still going to have enough mana to work with, depending on what I draw.
Like, to cast spells, but.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, even if he draws Escape Shift, like, he doesn't get to just run it back here.
Right, exactly. Yeah, he's just not going to have enough mana. I mean, again, I think PV knows he's not in a great spot right here. I think he's keeping 1 more mountain in his deck so that, like, any ramp spell allows him to bolt the
last Deathrite.
The last Deathrite, which he could get off the table right now, but I think doesn't want to, like, like leave all of the mountains on the table for when Liliana's ultimate hits or something? I don't know. No, but no, because when the ultimate hits, he's not going to be able to.
He's not. You're going to get out Valakut triggers anymore.
Yeah, I'm not positive that I understand. Maybe he cited it out for the planes. That's very.
There
possible.
is. We did see the planes in this game. He's got it in there.
Because we're looking at his deck list. I know for a fact he has one basic mountain left. He also may have discarded it. We didn't necessarily see his graveyard, so I'm sure there's. Paulo is not bad at the game of Magic.
Yep,
I'm confident
there's no mountain in there, so he's still got one hanging around. All right, so let's see what John Stern has. He's got 4 mana, and it looks like he's got a Slaughter Games in hand.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what he would. I mean, does he just name Cryptic at this point? Like, PV. Remember, even after all the things that we've just said and all the things that PV's done, he still has to find a way to actually kill John, and John's at 20.
Now, John cannot Slaughter Games PV
That's right.
because of the ley line. And what he can do is activate, he can use Deathrite Shaman to activate Raging Ravine and battle for a lot of damage. He can also just start using Deathrite Shaman. And you know, like the black ability, very relevant with Deathrite Shaman.
All right, so he exiles Steam Vents, and just like you mentioned there, Zach, he's going to activate Raging Ravine. It's a 3/3. When it attacks, it gets a +1/+1 counter, so it's a 4/4 on the beat down here. No cards in hand for PV, so it's a 2-turn clock.
So,
oh, wow. Yeah, so he just decided to plus Liliana and discard his dead Slaughter Games. He didn't ultimate.
The ultimate targets, so that's why I didn't do that.
Oh, the ultimate targets? Oh, thank you, sorry.
That tells the story.
I'm sorry,
I both
totally forgot.
Didn't deal loyalty and etc. Like we were talking about before the match started and promptly forgot about. Yeah.
All right, well, the good news is the most important thing was the Raging Ravine there. So PV drew that mountain that you just mentioned, Zach, and he used it to take down the Deathrite Shaman, which means that the Raging Ravine can't be activated, and he gets a turn off. And it's an Inferno Titan off the top for PV.
And again, because of the ley line, Liliana cannot edict away that Inferno Titan. But the path to exile positively huge right here.
Yep, and we're going to see an island come in because there's no more. there's
no
only
more
one basic, so that was it.
And relevantly now, the Raging Ravine out of even instant speed mountain range, out of lightning bolt range because it has 4 toughness. So
that's right.
We have to expect that the Raging Ravine is going to take this match down.
But John does need a red, or he just needs another.
Yeah, he doesn't have enough mana
source.
right now.
Yep.
And. Yeah, you have to wonder, does he want to keep just disrupting Sceptering himself by ticking Liliana up, or does he just leave it
he
at
doesn't.
7?
I mean, it's not doing anything else anyway.
Might as well use it now, just see what's in PV's hand, or I guess not. Maybe you're fearing the Cryptic Command at that point.
Yeah, so Paulo drew another ley line. He's got another ley line in his hand, and he drew a Remand. But it's a land for John Stern, and that's it. John Stern takes down Paulo Vitor Rosa. Even though PV got to set up some of his sideboard strategy, it wasn't enough. And Liliana of the Veil as a Planeswalker with 1 ability was enough.
Still good, yeah. It turns out the card's very powerful as is. I mean, again, like, PV very unfortunate in the mixture of lands he drew. Drew a lot of mountains, really preventing that scape shift from reaching maximum
PV's explaining what he was... He said he should have sacked differently.
Oh, yeah? Why was he saying why?
Couldn't hear him.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, he really needed an obstinate Baloth that game, not only just to deal with the Liliana, but just to have a threat on the board.
Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at the other match here. Looks like we have a fairly well-developed board. That is a Sowing Salt.
Big top deck for Carlos.
So we came in at a pretty interesting time here. Carlos down a game to Jerry Thompson. And, Dark Confidant reveals Sowing Salt. But we do see that Jerry's got all of his mana untapped here. Now, he does not have Tron online, not even close, in fact. Now, he's got a power plant.
How does Sowing Salt interact with Aven Mind Sensor? Does it, or does it not?
No, Aven Mind Sensor doesn't affect you.
Yeah, but you're searching their deck. Oh, but...
I think Aven Mind Sensor only cares about when your opponent searches.
Your opponent searches his or her deck. Fascinating. Cool. Well, as the kids like to say, caw. All right. So we're seeing the beatdowns being administered by Carlos. Jerry nowhere near close to having Tron. He's got a tower in his hand, which he can play, but that's still not going to quite get him there.
What is that token?
I am unsure.
Okay.
It's a SpongeBob SquarePants.
I see that, yeah.
Very important. All right, so are we going to see an activation of the Raging Ravine, or does Carlos want to empty some cards in his hand? Personally, I don't like to cast cards into a Tron deck with this many mana up. You're just asking to get hit with a Remand or something. But, you know, at the same time, Jerry hasn't really done a whole lot right now. So.
And Jerry actually has Thirst for Knowledge and 2 lands in hand, I believe. So you know, Carlos knows now that the way is clear. There's no way Jerry's just going to allow Liliana to just resolve.
No,
right?
no, of course not.
Right, so it's probably going to be an island being pitched away here by Jerry.
Although you may want to Thirst for Knowledge in response to that +1 ability. Just making sure you have as much information as possible when it comes to which card you want to discard.
Is Jerry thinking about that right now?
Yeah, I think he is.
Ah, 2 soldier tokens from Timely Reinforcements.
Oh, very timely. They look like soldiers. They have soul. Jerry, yeah, and that's exactly what we see him doing.
There's 2 more. 2 more Timely Reinforcements.
Those are a lot of reinforcements.
He just drew 2 more.
And that Timely Reinforcement's incredibly effective against the Liliana. I mean, like, you know, okay, I'll sacrifice a token. Allows you to threaten the Planeswalker. Very good against the Dark Confidant.
Yeah.
Not as good against Deathrite Shaman. They get
still
blocked.
can't believe it has 2 toughness, man.
Yeah, look.
Every time
the card wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
We needed to make it better. So Jerry gonna have to discard a lot of cards. We see him keep Tower and Timely Reinforcements. So
right,
normally you want to be discarding 1 card to Thirst for Knowledge, but you don't always have that luxury.
That's right. Right, so we got some real soldiers here for Jerry.
I prefer the previous tokens, I must say.
I like these ones better. All right, so Jerry's got 2 creatures. He's staring down 3 creatures. He is ahead on life total.
Yeah, it kind of makes it awkward to cast Timely.
Yeah, it's not the most timely of Timely Reinforcements here.
Yeah, Carlos just firmly in the driver's seat. You see him, he's gone through 2 Lilianas already. Liliana at 4 counter is going to make it hard for Jerry to really stick anything.
Is that Faith's Fetters?
Is that? Wow.
Oh, man, Faith's Fetters from Jerry Thompson.
And Faith's Fetters, of course, very effective against Planeswalkers because not only does it stop them from using their abilities, they can't play a second Planeswalker. It's going to essentially legend rule itself.
That's pretty sweet. And I think Carlos has another Liliana in hand, maybe? Oh, no, wait, he's already got 2 in his yard. He probably doesn't have another.
Yeah. See Sowing
He's
Salt,
got a Maelstrom Pulse, though, yeah.
Wow, another Sowing Salt.
Another Sowing Salt.
Carlos's Dark Confidant dealing him a lot of damage.
It is. He's down to 8. And he draws a Deathrite Shaman. Now, Deathrite can help ease the pain a bit.
And that's what we saw of getting the Worm Coil Engine out of the graveyard. Also very relevant because of Jerry's Academy Ruin.
Absolutely. Are we going to see Carlos fire off a Sowing Salt here and see if it goes? Jerry does have blue-white open.
I don't know. I mean, part of me wants to start attacking with that Raging Ravine. I mean, Jerry's at 20 life. Like, okay.
He's just going to be patient and just run the Liliana game until Jerry's out of cards.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Just grind his hand down to nothing, and then you can Sowing Salt him, and he has no option at that point.
And getting the Timely Reinforcements means that attacking for Carlos is a far better proposition. Jerry's not just going to gain all his life back and get more guys. That said, I mean, Jerry does have 6 mana. He's still in the area now where he just hard cast Worm Coil Engine or any of the other threats he draws. So, I mean, like, there's a value to starting to cast Sowing Salt. Actually, just the Stone Rains.
Yep.
Because 6 is a very important number for Jerry. It gets Mindslaver and it gets Worm Coil.
Yep.
We see Jerry with 2 copies of Worm Coil Engines after sideboard. Probably 1 copy of Mindslaver. A lot of his big threats. Jerry's deck not as typical as some other decks. It's only in the realm of giant threats to cast. Has 1 Mindslaver, 1 Elesh Norn, and 1 Terastodon in the main deck. Terastodon, of course, part of the Gifts Ungiven Unburial Rights package.
Okay. He can't hardcast that, right?
Probably not. It doesn't look like there's no green mana in his deck. He's just got to get it with Gifts Ungiven.
Okay. So I think Carlos is deciding if he wants to go on the offensive here. Wow, he cracks that Arid Mesa. He hit a path, by the way, off of his Dark Confidant. Oh, and it looks like Jerry says, you know what, I've had enough, and he's just going to scoop it up. So it looks like we're going to get a Game 3 decider here on Jerry Thompson versus Carlos Pal. It's like a really interesting matchup, too.
Yeah.
Some potent sideboard cards for both players. We saw timely reinforcements for Jerry T, and Carlos had Sowing Salts, which Jerry knew he had, and he didn't ultimately have to cast, but he was going to, and they were going to do a serious work, keeping Jerry permanently off of Tron, as we call it, making all 3 of those. Those lands by themselves only make 1 colorless.
Exactly, yeah. Without all 3 of them together, they're not very powerful lands.
No.
Jerry actually main decking 2 copies of Timely Reinforcements.
Wow.
Presumably, I guess just he's saying, okay, if my deck survives for long enough, I'll be able to, you know, I'm going to win the game. So might as well just buy some time, get some creatures, again, make Liliana a little bit worse. I have to expect him to bring in the 2 copies of Spreading Seas, too, against Carlos's Raging Ravines. Also, just Carlos a 4-color deck.
Yeah, it's a kind of a sketchy mana base anyway.
So a lot of value, but it looks like he may have sideboarded a couple of those out. I'm looking at what Carlos has after sideboard. You've got to expect you want your 1 copy of Ancient Grudge. He's got Rakdos Charm, which can threaten some of Jerry's artifact mana and can stop the Gifts Ungiven package.
That's right.
Very important. You buy yourself a lot of time and a lot of card advantage if you can exile Jerry's graveyard in response to a timely Unburial Rites.
Yeah. It also shuts off the Academy Ruins.
Precisely. Yeah, that's a really good point, too. He's got 2 copies of Aven Mind Sensor, obviously very good against Jerry's Expedition maps. Also very good with his Paths to Exile.
Now, I'm assuming, I'm not 100%, is Jerry on the Eye of Ugin Eldrazi or Eye of Ugin for, you know, big colorless beaters plan, or does he not have that at all?
He does not actually have that. His utility lands are 1 Ghost Quarter, 2 Academy Ruins, 2 Celestial Colonnade.
Okay.
So yeah, no Eldrazi. Again, his big effects are only Mindslaver. He's got a Crucible of Worlds Ghost Quarter, which he can set up. Actually very, very powerful in the long game. And Elesh Norn Terastodon. But yeah, no Eldrazi, it looks like.
Okay.
Out of sideboard again, he's got Wormcoil Engine, Vendilion Click, although he probably doesn't want that in his matchup. And yeah, Face Fetters are really a pretty conservative Tron deck, which I can understand. It makes you probably worse in sort of a contest of raw power, but a lot more effective against things like Sowing Salt, because Jerry doesn't need 15 mana or 11 mana. You know, he can operate just fine on 6.
Right. Yeah, that's probably one of the nice side effects, right, from not having the whole Eldrazi thing going, is that while the Eldrazi give you a lot of inevitability going late thanks to Eye of Ugin, it does demand more, right? You have to get further into your deck. You have to survive for more turns.
Whereas Jerry's curve actually very low. We see 3 copies of Repeal, 2 Timely Enforcements, 4 Thirst for Knowledge, 4 Remand, 4 Path, 4 Expedition Map, Gifts Ungiven. You know, it's a really, really streamlined deck. You could almost see a lot of these cards, you know, Azorius Signet Talisman in progress, just in a blue-white control deck that doesn't play Tron at all. Tron really there.
So it's like incidental Tron here? It's just like, exactly. Might as well throw Tron in there because it's value and like you can do stupid stuff with it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, having designed the original Gifts Ungiven Tron deck, not to talk myself up very highly, you still have an incredible amount of power just Gifts Ungiven for Tron pieces, Academy Ruins, and Crucible of Worlds.
Okay.
That allows you to simply use Tron to leverage your Academy Ruins rather than have to cast these sort of ridiculously large threats by themselves.
Okay.
You know, you can use your first gifts to set up either the Unburial Rites package or just to get your mana base online. And with as many cyclers as Jerry plays an Expedition Map to get his second Academy Ruins, it's very easy to set up the hard lock.
Yep, so turn 1 Expedition Map for Jerry is a pretty ideal start, followed by another ideal start from Carlos Powell with his Deathrite Shaman. All right, 1 Tron piece down. It's a tower. It's the big one for Jerry. He can crack this map and get another one. We see he has the mine in his hand along with another tower, so he is going to have Tron if he goes uninterrupted here.
Yeah, basically the ideal hand for Jerry. He's got a Faith's Fetters, it looks like, to deal with a problematic permanent, Remand to gain some tempo. If Carlos doesn't cast anything very threatening this turn, Jerry can go ahead and crack the Expedition Map. So Jerry's got to be pretty excited about this hand.
Now we see that Carlos cracks a Verdant Catacombs. That's going to give him access to 3 mana here on turn 2. Could be Liliana o'clock here. Now, The nice thing for Jerry, though, is that he doesn't have to crack this map this turn. He can just remand it and keep himself out of Liliana range for a little while here.
Exactly. And the nice thing about remand,
Overgrown Tomb untapped.
Yeah, very, very effective against Deathrite Shaman, because Deathrite Shaman's not like a Noble Hierarch or a Bird of Paradise. You know, you have to exhaust a resource in your graveyard every time you use mana. At some point, you're going to run out of lands.
There it is, and I think it's going to get remanded. There it is. Jerry draws a card, passes the turn back. He draws an Azorius Signet, and he's got a repeal now as well. So he's going to play a Mine probably. And do you think he just goes Signet, pass, and then he can crack his Expedition map?
I like that play. I also like Signet and then main phase repeal on the Deathrite Shaman.
Oh, just put him way behind?
Yeah, exactly. Get another card in your hand. That means you don't have anything to do against Liliana, but you don't have a lot to do against Liliana.
I like that line too.
Yeah. And that's exactly why the Signets are so powerful.
Yes.
Like, they essentially only cost 1 mana any turn after turn 2.
Yeah.
And Jerry doesn't have to care very much about the Liliana because of Faith's Fetters. Repealing the Shaman gets it off the table, and if Carlos plays Liliana again, that puts Jerry at a very healthy 24 life with just 0 threats on Carlos' side of the board.
And like you mentioned before, it acts as a seal of Liliana as well. So yeah, I really like that line a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry just all the time in the world with an Expedition map on the board. You know, we're assuming he's going to get a Tron piece, but he could get a Celestial Colonnade and just start attacking.
It's true. All right, so we're going to see, we actually have already seen Thoughtseize from Carlos Pal, and it reveals Path to Exile, Faith's Fetters, a Tron land, a tower, and an Academy Ruins.
Now that is a pretty big Thoughtseize. You have to expect him to take the Face Fetters.
That's exactly what he does. Loses 2 life. He's going to drop Carlos down to either 13 or he already did it, I'm not sure. And he's going to replay Deathrite, and he does have a land as well. Blackcleave Cliffs ships a turn back.
But again, like Jerry doesn't even have to care
Jerry
very
just
much
drew a
about
power
Liliana
plant
right now. Yeah, so he's got the raw Tron. You're going to expect him to play Power Plant, play Academy Ruins. Then he doesn't have to care about what's in his hand. And again, maybe what he's going to do is get the Celestial Colonnade.
Hey, you might as well get it now. He's already got Tron in his hand. Yeah, there it is, Celestial Colonnade.
And this allows him to threaten the Liliana, get a clock against Carlos. Remember, Carlos at 15 life, he's not going to survive too many more attacks from the Colonnade, period.
No, it adds up really quickly, and a lot of Carlos's cards do damage to him. I mean, if you can beat your opponent down, it makes Dark Confidant like unplayable for your opponent at some point.
Right. So we're going to see Liliana, but Jerry's been playing around it this entire game.
Right.
So it's not going to be anything that he's just tremendously afraid of.
No.
Now, there is a big question. Yeah, what do you discard right now? I mean, you have to say the redundant tower, right?
Yes. Oh, he's going to actually path Deathrite Shaman here, too.
And, yeah, and I respect that. I mean, I think, again, your play is just, like, hit him with Colonnade as much as humanly possible. All you want to do is not be under pressure right now.
So why wouldn't you hold on to Path to Exile? Like for, let's say there's a Tarmogoyf for some big threat that he needs to kill.
That is an excellent question.
I mean, he clearly doesn't have to face that down right now, but let's say Carlos untaps and goes Goyf. It's a 4/5. It's 5/6. You know.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. These are the type of things that I think of, and these are the type of things that the players have to, work through in real time down there. And I'm sure Jerry has a great reason for that. I wish we could, pause time and go ask him because he would explain it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe.
He drew, I don't know. A Hollowed Fountain.
So you have to expect him to just complete the Tron right here and start battling with the Colonnade.
Yep.
And he's just gonna discard Hollowed Fountain Liliana.
Yeah, he made Liliana essentially a 2-for-1. Right? I mean, Carlos had to discard a card and he loses it. Jerry uses no cards to kill it. Uses some tempo, and had to ditch a redundant Tron piece. So nice sequence for Jerry. It's your buddy Thundermaw Hellkite again.
A colossal Thundermaw Hellkite right off the top of the deck right here. And, I mean, like you said, maybe that's a reason to keep Path to Exile in your hand. Also, maybe he wanted to get... I could see him wanting to get the Deathrite Shaman in response to the ability before Carlos can play a sack land and get a mana out of the Deathrite Shaman's first ability. He might have thought Carlos was making a mistake by, like, activating Liliana before cracking a sackland, wanted to capitalize
And he
on
wanted
it.
to try to get him.
Very hard to say, but I mean,
Okay.
it definitely looks very awkward now that Thundermaw Hellkite
Yeah,
is.
he's facing down a rather large dragon here.
Now, then again, I mean, Jerry wins the race, right? I mean, Carlos at 11, Jerry at 15, of just cracking for 4 with Celestial Colonnade every turn. A pretty huge repeal right now for Jerry.
So he taps out to repeal the Thundermaw Hellkite. He reveals 2 lands to Inquisition of Kozilek.
I mean, that was a mighty repeal for Jerry right
It was
there.
because if Carlos, I don't know if he's played a land this turn. He must not have, right?
Right.
Because he played Hellkite
last
turn.
turn. Yeah, it still means he's got to take a damage, and possibly if he doesn't have an untapped land to get,
Yeah.
that would put him
That's
down to 8.
And that's 2 turns
2
block.
attacks in the
Yeah,
colonnade,
I am with
exactly.
you, sir. This is interesting. All right, he's going to crack Arid Mesa. Does he have a basic? These decks do not run very many basic lands.
Yeah, I'm looking at Carlos's deck. He has Plains, Forest, Swamp, no basic mountain.
Nope, there it is. It's Godless Shrine, and it is untapped. Now, do you attack? I know that Thundermaw Hellkite wants to attack at every opportunity. Does it here? Look, he doesn't even bother putting it in play tap. All right, so 10 for Jerry. Jerry can activate, get him, and this could be very close race.
Yeah, so Jerry at 10 life, Carlos at 4.
And
I mean, you probably attack with a Hellkite the first time. Just
Hellkite. Path to Exile that Jerry had drawn.
What top decks?
And he extends the hand as Carlos Pal falls to Jerry Thompson's. Very timely.
Those were some killer
Wow,
draws in the last couple of turns.
savage draws.
I
Wow.
mean, that's why you have to attack with that Hellkite the first time to give you that out.
Jerry
I know
just
Jerry
calm as-
casually-
he's just like, yeah, well, you know, sometimes you draw your path.